He was 5 days from execution. 5 days from being killed by the state for a murder he didn't commit. Then scientists tested the evidence, and what they found didn't just prove Ron Williamson was innocent. It pointed toward another man, a man who had testified against him. Before prison, Ron Williamson had another dream: baseball. He grew up in Ada, Oklahoma, and was a talented player. In 1971, he was selected 41st overall in the amateur baseball draft, but a shoulder injury damaged his career. He eventually returned home to Ada, and that's where his life took a terrifying turn. In December 1982, 21-year-old Debbie Sue Carter was found raped and murdered in her apartment. Police began searching for her killer. Ron Williamson became a suspect. One reason? A man named Glenn Gore told police he had seen Williamson at the restaurant where Carter worked on the night of the murder. Years would pass before Ron was actually charged. The prosecution didn't have DNA linking Ron to the crime. Instead, they had jailhouse informants. They had statements investigators interpreted as admissions. And they had forensic evidence. 17 hairs from the crime scene were presented as matching Ron's hair. At the time, that sounded convincing. Today, that type of hair comparison is considered unvalidated forensic science. In 1988, Ron Williamson was convicted of first-degree murder. The jury sentenced him to death. He went to Oklahoma's death row, an innocent man waiting to be killed. And then, the countdown began. At one point, Ron came within 5 days of execution. Think about that. 5 days, 5 more sunsets, 5 more nights before the state could have taken his life. But his execution was stopped. Ron remained on death row, and he kept fighting. Years later, the physical evidence was finally tested using DNA. The results were devastating to the prosecution's case. The semen recovered from the crime scene didn't belong to Ron Williamson, and the hairs that supposedly matched him, they weren't his either. But then came the twist. The DNA profile pointed toward Glenn Gore, the same man who had been a key witness for the prosecution. On April 15th, 1999, Ron Williamson walked out of prison after 11 years behind bars. His conviction was overturned. The charges were dismissed, and Ron was officially exonerated. The man they nearly executed was innocent. But here's what makes Ron's story so painful. He didn't get his 11 years back. He couldn't get back the years stolen from him. And only 5 years after his release, Ron Williamson died. He was just 51 years old. He survived death row, but he never got the lifetime he should have had. And the evidence that finally saved him had been sitting there all along. 5 days from execution, 11 years stolen, and 1 DNA test. That finally told the truth. If stories like Ron Williamson's deserve to be remembered, subscribe to 60 Wonders. Because sometimes, the most terrifying part of history is knowing that an innocent person was almost killed, while the truth was sitting in the evidence box.